This is the introduction to a section on men and healing. Men and healing. And before you run away, let me give you 3 reasons why it's probably a good idea to have a look at this section. The first reason is that it's about loss. And loss is about life. Because loss and the feelings of loss have to do with our desire, what we want and what we don't want. And every day we run into things where we get what we don't want and we don't get what we do want, and that's loss, and that's what we're talking about healing from. These are little teeny losses, and the experts talk about these as being micro grief, like being in a traffic jam. You get stuck in a traffic jam. That's a minor loss. It's not a huge loss. But it's interesting, if you look at a traffic jam, everybody's got a different way to respond to that loss, just like we have different ways as people to respond to bigger losses. Think about the guy in the traffic jam. One guy's got the wheel, he's shaking it like that, he's pissed off, right? Another guy's head's just drooping down. Oh, God, I can't believe I'm in a traffic jam. Another guy's just sort of jamming to the music. And you can see this other guy, you can see his head, he's thinking to himself, if only I'd taken the other route, I'd be there by now. So we all have a different way to deal with these losses. What's important is that little losses, just like big losses, accumulate. And the more we can process, the more we can let that crap go, the more we're going to be able to enjoy our lives and be in the present moment. Now, the second reason this is important is that almost every aspect of men's issues has to do with loss. Think about it. Getting a divorce. What happens in a divorce? Divorce is absolutely filled with loss. You lose your kids. You lose your spouse who you thought at one time was going to be your partner for life. You lose your home. You lose everything, money. You lose all kinds of things. And there's hundreds and hundreds of little losses that go along with it. The friends that were your couple's friends. There's just hundreds and hundreds of tiny losses that build up. It's a huge amount of grief that builds up from being divorced and being separated from your children. Huge. Parental alienation syndrome, same thing. Imagine the loss of being alienated from your kids, where your kids don't like you anymore. That sucks. That's a huge loss. Victim of domestic violence, huge loss. Loss issues over and over and over again. False accusation, same kind of thing. If you look at almost every issue that we talk about, it has to do with loss. So that makes this section pretty important. And what's even more important is that men and women have very different ways to deal with loss. And that's what this section is going to be about. And what I've found over about 30 years of working with men is that we're different, and the men will tend to move towards action and honoring, whereas the women will tend to move towards talking and crying. Now that's a real generalization there, and there's about 15% of men who are going to be more like the women, and probably about 10-15% of the women are going to be more like the men. But in general, most men are going to be wanting to move towards an action, and you'll be learning more and more about how men do that. We'll give you examples of lots of different men and the way they've healed. Why is this important? It's important because many men do this automatically, but they do not have the awareness that what they're doing is healing. So when someone comes to them and says, "You're not dealing with your feelings. You should be talking more about your feelings. You should cry more," he can look at them and say, "Nope, this is the way I do it. And it works just fine." When we're able to do that, it relieves us of the burden of being shamed. We all need to minimize shame. So watching this section, you're going to learn a little bit more about that. You're going to be affirmed for the way you do things, because I have yet to meet any man who doesn't automatically do these things all on his own. You'll find out you do the same thing. And it's pretty cool, actually. It's good to know, just for our own feeling good about ourselves, but also to make sure the world doesn't turn in on us and try to turn us into women. Anyway, have a look at the first one, see what you think, and we'll see where we go.